It works perfectly well as a business model. The need for control is often accompanied by the illusion of control, and idiots probably deluded themselves that they are in control more than others. 111 Proof of the power of this illusion can be shown through the everyday example of driving or riding in a car. When you're a passenger, you fear accidents much more than you do when you are the driver. There are some fools who find it impossible to sleep when they are passengers. Apparently they can sleep only when they're the driver. The idiot will throw the dice as hard as he can to get sixes. He will choose his own numbers in the lottery. He will stoop to pick up a penny for luck and make sure to avoid walking under ladders. The fool has everything under control. If he wins the lottery, it's because he dreamed of the number. Six for 6 nights in a row, and because 6 times 6 equals 36, he played the 36 and won. By the same token, it must be accepted that the idiot is in good mental health overall, because the illusion of control is much weaker among depressed people. 12. Studies about idiots that help explain your job. In another area studied widely by scientists, idiots have been found to employ an exceptionally wide range of strategies to shore up their self-esteem. Studies on bias and false consensus 13 demonstrate that people tend to exaggerate the number of other people who share their faults. This is why, when you point out to some jerk that he has blown past a stop sign, he will retort, "But nobody stops at this sign." The typical asshole often indulges in retrospective bias. At the maternity hospital, he'll say, "I was sure it was going to be a boy." As he stands in front of the television on election night, he'll declare, "I was sure Trump was going to be president," and sometimes when you're talking with him he'll tell you, "I knew you were going to say that." Is the idiot showing bad faith? Is the idiot a fortune teller? Not at all. The idiot deploys, "I knew it," to strategic ends, to demonstrate that he's better informed than he really is. Igno, I know. Quote. Of course, you must never mention these studies to idiots, as they will deny that they do such things. To protect their self-esteem, many people overestimate their abilities. This bias has been proved by psychological experiments that demonstrate that, in multiple arenas, a large number of participants rate themselves higher than average in such categories as, for instance, intelligence and of everything connected with it. On one side of the axis, you have those humble souls whose human qualities of simplicity, humility, and discretion lead others to perceive them as simple-minded or naive, and to criticize them for lack of confidence and treat them like dummies who can be easily manipulated. On the other side of the axis, you find the high achievers, which is to say, overconfident idiots. One of these smug morons can exact a high price on society when he, for example, gets lost at sea, or gets stranded in the mountains after off-piste skiing, even if he mostly contents himself with exaggerating his prowess at maintaining speed on the highway. Another form of bias, egocentric bias, 14 permits us to distinguish monolig imbeciles from the gigantic assholes who don't acknowledge their own role in stupidity. The jerk who's been divorced 3 times because all 3 of the women he married were bitches, the blowhard whose business failed because he was working with a bunch of losers. Even when he was a teenager, he claimed that it wasn't his feet that stank, it was his socks. One day he was stopped in his car for speeding, that was just bad luck. He can't understand that luck is the spin that assholes put on probability. The researchers David Dunning and Justin Kruger could not have published an article with a title like, "Studies about Idiots That Help Explain Your Job." If they had presented their work that way, it never would have made it through peer review at a scientific journal. Yet in their research, this is what they abundantly demonstrated. These 2 specialists discovered that incompetent people tend to overestimate their own level of competence. That is why a fool who's never had a dog will tell you how to train yours. Dunning and Kruger attribute this tendency to the difficulty that unqualified people have, in certain contexts, with assessing their true abilities. But that's not all. According to these psychologists, 15 not only does the incompetent person overestimate his own level of competence, he also fails to recognize competence in those who possess it. Thanks to their research, we can understand why a stupid client will tell a professional how to do his job, and why when you lose something someone is bound to say to you, "Wait, where was it the last time you saw it?" It also explains why a fool will feel compelled to say, "It's easy to be a lawyer, law is top of the head stuff, quitting smoking. It's just a question of willpower, flying an airplane. It's like driving a bus," and so on. This is why when an idiot strolls out of a lecture on quantum physics of which he has not understood a single word, he will feel free to look the expert straight in the eyes and say, "Could be, could be." Quote. Dunning and Kruger suggest that if we were prudent we would be tempted not to vote in elections. Given how useless we are at economy, geopolitics, and running major institutions, we are incapable of evaluating electoral platforms or of having any idea how to improve the country's direction. All the same, any idiot at a bar will say, "I know how to solve the crisis." A number of studies conducted with Asian participants display an inverse Dunning-Kruger effect. 16 In other words, they underestimate their abilities. It appears that in the culture of the Far East, where the prevailing norm is to avoid standing out, the desire to prove that you've mastered every subject does not exist. Bullshit detector. Even though many more mechanisms could be included here to help you define stupidity, let's wrap up this short synthesis with a discussion of cynical mistrust, a quality in which the idiot and the asshole are more deeply steeped than other people. 17 Cynicism is defined as a collection of negative beliefs about human nature and its motivations. The asshole is often prey to socio-political cynicism, just ask him. A few phrases punctuate his running commentary: "They're all corrupt, a bunch of crooks and losers, psychologists. Charlatans, every last one of them, journalists. Bootlickers. They think that people who act honestly do soonly out of fear of being caught. The asshole lives in a world of incompetence and deceit." Studies show that cynical idiots are so uncooperative and mistrustful that they miss out on professional opportunities, and therefore earn less than others do. In sum, the idiot embodies a sort of exaggerated version of the various tendencies the researchers observed. An idiot who manages to accumulate all these tendencies will become the emperor of idiots, which is to say, the most gigantic asshole the earth has ever seen. But the key question, tied to our starting point, is it possible to make a scientific study of idiots, is probably, why are there so many idiots? Because it is undeniably true that there are. If you shout, "Poor bastard," in the street, every head will turn around. Once again, the scientific literature provides the answer, indeed, many answers. First of all, we're all equipped with a bullshit detector called negativity bias. 18 This is a tendency that leads us to give more weight, attention, and interest to negative things than to positive ones. Negativity bias has significant consequences on people's opinions, on their prejudices and stereotypes, on discrimination and superstition. As with housework, we notice the little things only when they haven't been done. It's because of negativity bias that we find it easier to deal with an idiot than with a genius.